What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Jamahal Hill reacts to Alex Pereira contract rumor. When it was announced that Alex Pereira would battle Jamahal Hill at UFC 300, more than a few eyebrows were raised throughout the MMA world. Not only because a lot of fans had been holding out for a megastar like Israel Adesanya or Conor McGregor to headline the card, but because UFC 301 is right around the corner. What does that have to do with Pereira? Well, UFC 301 is taking place in Rio de Janeiro, and since the light heavyweight champion is from Brazil, it would kind of make sense if Pereira fought on that card instead. And on account of all of this, there's been a rumor circulating that Pereira's contract for UFC 300 actually stipulates that if he wins, he'll battle Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 301 on May 4th. All this speculation has been spiked by the fact that Poatan said he'd be down to throw hands with Ankalaev at the Rio de Janeiro event. But while speaking with MMA legend Michael Bisping recently, Hill made it clear he thinks all this talk is just plain stupid.
I heard him say that. It's cat, bro. They don't do clauses like that. You know they don't.
And what does Hill think of Pereira publicly saying he hopes and believes fighting at UFC 301 is a possibility?
Yeah, it was funny to me, bro. It was funny to me. And it's funny like that how I can say like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna knock him out. And it's like, oh, he's delusional. He's crazy. And all these things like that. But my man literally said he was gonna beat he was gonna beat me and then turn around 3 weeks later and fight Magomed. That's crazy, bro.
Yup, if Pereira does run through Hill unscathed and then fights Ankalaev 3 weeks later, it would be pretty crazy. But don't bet your house, or even your tent for that matter, on it happening. Here's a funny skit of Jamahal Hill responding to how the MMA community thinks the fight will play out.
Is that a Tiger Woods 9 iron on your leg? No, he ain't about to do another one. This is a misunderstanding these things. Walking, coach talking about a check, only check I'm gonna get is for showing up. I'm about to check out to beat me in a race because he ain't finna keep beating on my leg. Bro, what the f is your leg made of? Check my kick like Nike. My nerves and feelings done check completely out. Maybe I should stick to boxing. This strong leg must be stepping for Jesus. Somebody else might have to step up. I'm out.
Up next, Sean O'Malley's team sends a warning to Merab Dvalishvili. Now that Sean O'Malley has avenged his defeat to Chito Vera, yes, we know Sugar claims it wasn't a loss. The expectation is that the bantamweight champ will face Merab Dvalishvili next. Although O'Malley has called for a fight with the featherweight king, Ilia Topuria, it seems unlikely that the UFC will go in that direction right now. After all, Merab has won 10 straight and has defeated the likes of Peter Yan, Jose Aldo, and Henry Cejudo during that span. Since Dvalishvili has demonstrated time and time again that he's absurdly tough and can grapple for days, many have argued the Georgian fighter could make O'Malley's reign a brief one. But according to O'Malley's coach, Tim Welsh, Merab hasn't faced anyone who can slug like Sugar. While speaking via his YouTube channel, Welsh had this to say about the likely matchup.
Merab is a serious tank, 10-fight win streak. It's against guys like this: John Dodson, 5'2", Cody Stamann, 5'2", Marlon Moraes, 5'6", Jose Aldo, I think 5'6", 5'7", Peter Yan, 5'2", Henry Cejudo is a clean 5 foot. So it's guys that are a little bit shorter than Sugar, let me tell you that much. Sean's a solid 5'10", 5'10", knows how to control a distance, loves when people loads up on punches, and Merab loads up. It's going to be an interesting fight. We've never fought no one like Merab. Obviously, he's a machine and he's not going to stop, but Merab's never fought no one like the Sugar Show, who can put your lights out one punch.
Will O'Malley become the first man to ever turn off the Georgian machine with strikes? Okay, now let's dive into Alex Pereira gets called out by UFC fighter. Alex Pereira may hit like a massive truck racing down the highway, but that hasn't prevented fighters from calling out Poatan. Of course, when you've won 2 UFC titles in less than 2 years, you're gonna have contenders gunning for you. Well, one of the latest men to call out Pereira is Khalil Roundtree, who's been working his way to a title shot courtesy of a 5-fight winning streak. More recently, the Muay Thai specialist spoke with Rampage Jackson, and while doing so, he campaigned for a scrap with the champ.
I think that he's good. I think that he's great. You know, he's the champion. I think he's the champion for a reason. I think that he's got great striking experience. And I personally think that the two of us matched up me versus Alex. I think that honestly, when I see that fight happening, and when it does happen, because it will happen, that's the fight that all the fans want.
There's no doubt that on paper, a bout between Pereira and Roundtree has a lot of appeal, especially for striking enthusiasts. But if Pereira gets by Jamahal Hill at UFC 300, it could be a minute before Roundtree gets that fight. Currently, he's ranked number 8 in the UFC's 205 division. Okay, time for some UFC fight updates. The UFC continues to book fights for its spring and early summer schedule, and recently, 3 more bouts have been reported. The UFC announced that the promotion's May 8th card in Vegas will feature a pretty interesting featherweight scrap between Edson Barboza and Lerone Murphy. Although Barboza is now pushing 40, the former lightweight contender has muzzled any talk that he should hang up his gloves by scoring consecutive wins over Billy Quarantillo and Sadiq Youssef. Murphy, meanwhile, continues to battle his way up the featherweight rankings thanks to his 5-fight winning streak. Most recently, Murphy recorded a decision victory over Joshua Coulibaly. In addition, MMA journalist Marcel Dorff is reporting via Iridium Sports Agency that the UFC's June 8th card will feature Cody Stamen throwing hands with Taylor Lapillus and Brad Katona throwing down with Jesse Butler. Katona is looking to get back on track after having a 5-fight win streak ended by Garrett Armfield, and Butler is in the same boat as his 5-fight win streak was halted by Jim Miller. Stamen, meanwhile, could be in a must-win situation, as the veteran has dropped 3 of his last 5 fights. Lapillus is also trying to get back in the win column, as his 6-fight win streak was stopped by Farid Basharat in January. Those are a couple of promising bantamweight fights. If you're wondering, the venue for the June 8th card has yet to be confirmed, but the expectation is it will be yet another event at the Apex in Las Vegas. Now, let's turn to Conor McGregor fires back at Joe Rogan for comments. Now, chances are, you're well aware that Conor McGregor is starring in the Roadhouse remake opposite movie star Jake Gyllenhaal. After all, not only have there been a bazillion ads making the rounds, McGregor's also been doing a ton of press promoting the film. Well, some of the comments McGregor's made about his foray into acting haven't sat well with Joe Rogan. More specifically, it's been the notorious one's claims that acting is harder than fighting, which the UFC commentator and podcaster scoffed at. For example, in one interview with Joe, the Irish star said this.
Acting.
Why is that?
Time consumption. And you know, it's not just action and fighting and stunts. It's also memory in the line, and you have to time things correctly. You're engaging with another person.
To which Rogan had this to say in response while discussing the comments on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Listen to me.
Whoa,
That's not
for
true.
him.
JMO. That's not true.
Because he
even
trained
for
UFC
him.
his whole life.
Okay, act in Roadhouse or fight Khabib again. Shut the f up.
Well,
That
yeah.
is crazy talk. He
was
broke
bad.
his f***ing leg in a fight. He broke his leg. Like, that's harder. Listen,
Right.
the guy's promoting a movie. He's a
Right.
great promoter. An amazing
Kinda sober.
promoter. He's the
He
best
is.
promoter in the history of the sport. No one even comes close. There's Conor McGregor
Can we bring
and
up his interview?
everybody else.
Hard to argue with anything Rogan is saying here, right? Although the accomplished martial artist did concede that actors can put in long days on set.
There you
Reveals
go.
why acting is harder than them. That's just a clickbait bullshit headline that you fell for, son.
Reveals why. This is it.
Acting is harder.
He's in my wife.
Time consumption. It takes a lot of time. There's a lot of sitting around. If
trying
you're
to tell- he's trying
acting,
to tell him.
you're going to be on a set 16 hours a day. You're probably going to be sitting around for 10, waiting for your, especially if you're Conor, you're not Jake Gyllenhaal. You're
Yeah.
going to be waiting around for your line.
Rogan's comments got back to McGregor, and it was him referencing his epic loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov, which the former champ focused on. Hey, Joe Rogan, I kidnapped Khabib's bear and put it on a tutu and shot it in the back of the head, and he still won't come back. Yeah, it certainly seems like the ship has sailed on Khabib fighting again, much less rematching Conor. Okay, now let's talk about GSP breaks silence on MMA GOAT. If you're an old school or just a huge MMA fan, you know that one of the most popular discussions to have is regarding who is the greatest fighter of all time. Over the years, some of the names that get dropped in these debates have changed a bit, but for the most part, there's a handful of fighters who get brought up, and in more recent years, it seems like the debate has been narrowed down to just 2 fighters, Jon Jones and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Well, one of the all-time greats is unquestionably George St. Pierre, and while speaking with Henry Cejudo and Kamaru Usman recently on the Pound for Pound podcast, he was quick to weigh in on who is the GOAT. The former welterweight and middleweight champ was quick to praise Royce Gracie before acknowledging Jon Jones is likely the greatest.
But if you ask me in terms of where we are now, I think it's hard to find someone better than Jon Jones, man. Jon Jones is so good. Jon Jones is extremely talented, but he's also extremely tough. People have no idea how tough he is, man. Most of the time when you have a guy that is very talented, it doesn't come with toughness. Jon Jones is the full package. He's got everything. Elite striker, elite grappler. He's good everywhere.
Everywhere.
There you have it. Are you also in the camp that says Bones is the GOAT? Okay, up next, Sean Strickland leaving UFC. All the talk regarding the UFC's middleweight title these days is about Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya finally throwing down. And by the sounds of it, Sean Strickland isn't too happy about it. Ever since Strickland dropped the title to du Plessis via split decision loss in January, the controversial and outspoken fighter has been pushing for a rematch. Problem is, du Plessis has been campaigning for a fight with Adesanya, and since the two have some serious issues with each other, the consensus is the UFC plans to book that fight. But while speaking to fans via Twitter recently, the rugged veteran continued to call for a rematch with the new champ. The UFC fans want me and Dricus to settle it. Dricus wants to settle it. We all know I fought in a dirty liberal country who f***ed me. Dana White knows it. The UFC knows it. If it was anyone else on the roster, the rematch would happen. Do the right thing, UFC. Now, sure, not everyone is probably on board with Strickland's take here. While, yes, the fight with du Plessis was close, it was Strickland's first fight as champ. Typically, the UFC grants immediate rematches for fighters who held the title for a while, like when Adesanya was KO'd by Pereira in 2022. So, where does this leave Strickland? That's a good question, but it sounds like the polarizing fighter isn't interested in trying to make another title shot run. You know, man, I'm not climbing that ladder again. If that isn't it for me, I don't know. Boxing? Go make millions beating up Jake Paul, LMAO. Now, it's possible Paul versus Strickland could move a lot of tickets and pay-per-view buys, sure. But would the UFC let Strickland throw hands with Jake Paul? Probably not. Not only that, Paul has his hands full and then some right now, as he's gonna box Iron Mike Tyson in July. The MMA community calls out Sean Strickland after a tweet he posted caused controversy. Strickland tweeted saying, "My girl watches the TikTok sadly. She keeps showing me Miss Peaches, the Barstool Sports guy's dog, and I asked my girl, does this man have kids? No. Let me tell you all something. If you're a grown, childless man obsessed about a dog, you gotta rethink your life, rich or poor." Michael Chiesa responded saying, "If you're a grown, childless man hating on someone for loving a dog, you gotta rethink your life, rich or poor." Here's what the MMA world had to say. "It will never cease to amaze me how the guys who are the quickest to call other snowflakes are themselves so easy to offend. Strickland is the worst. Fellas, is it gay to love your dog? I love how insecure these self-proclaimed alpha males are. I love Strickland in the octagon, but hate him as a person." Okay, someone go check on this guy. Dude def has some early signs of CTE. Not every take you have needs to raise eyebrows or cause controversy. Horrible take, man. Bad news for Sean Strickland. Miss Peaches didn't die this weekend like he was rooting for. Sucks for you, Sean. Dogs are better than humans. Top comments. Everyone about Conor being on steroids, so he gets off them, and now everyone complains he's too skinny. Make up your minds. Either you want to see him fight or you don't. Fan or no fan, shut up and enjoy the entertainment. Strickland versus Whitaker or Strickland versus Hamzat should have been the #1 contender fight if they're making Dricus versus Izzy. GSP is the only person in the entire world that can say that and not be cringe. Du Plessis is going to come up with every excuse to not fight guys because he knows the belt is gone his next fight, whether it be against Izzy or Strickland. I personally would rather see a rematch with Strickland. Du Plessis got battered, and the fight, if anything, was a draw in my opinion. I scored Strickland winning, but to beat the champ, it should have been a one-sided beatdown. Du Plessis won because he tackled Strickland a couple of times, not because he beat him in the fight. Money. Make sure to leave a comment and you might get featured in our next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any MMA news. Check out our video from yesterday if you missed it. See you tomorrow.